Hi, everybody. Margaret Floyd Barry here, and I am with Dr. Caitlin Capistran, who specializes in manual therapy and visceral mobilization. Do you want to give people just a little quick
Yeah, absolutely.
explanation of what that is?
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist and my specialty is in manual therapy. And manual therapy is using hands-on healing techniques to help support the body to heal. And they're all based on the anatomy of the body. And one subset of those techniques is visceral mobilization, which is working with our internal organs through hands-on techniques. And one thing we can really have a big impact on, especially that's relevant to your folks, is the digestive system.
Yeah, so when we think of digestion, so many times when we're trying to resolve digestive issues, we're thinking about, what foods we eat. Are there food sensitivities? Is there digestive function issues? Like, are you secreting enough digestive enzymes, or is there like something in there that we need to get rid of, like a candida overgrowth or a parasite or something like this? What we often don't think about is that there are structural issues that can absolutely impact our digestive process. And one of the pieces of this is when you've had any kind of surgery and there is scar tissue, that can have a real impact on your digestive process. Want to share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to think about it and how it can impact you if you have a scar either from surgery or an injury where you've maybe had like a sports injury where there was an impact into your body, or even an illness where you've had like bacteria or viruses that are actually damaging the inside of your body and your body is launching a healing response and laying down scar tissue after that. The easiest way to think of it for the digestive system is to think about the digestive tract, and it's just a long tube. It's like a hose.
Yeah.
And when you have scar tissue in there, what it does is it starts to bind up that hose, make it tight, and create blockages there where you get little kinks and what we call adhesions, which kink the hose, and then food can't travel through, so you're not absorbing well. It can create issues like bloating or reflux or constipation, and those can all have a really mechanical reason that the person's experiencing those symptoms. So in addition to working from the functional side, for a lot of people, especially if they have a history of surgeries or chronic illness or injuries, you have to look at the structure to support the function as well.
Yeah, 100%. So there's some manual techniques, so some actual sort of self-massage that you can do to help break up some of that scar tissue. So you want to show us how it works?
Totally. So first I'll just give you a quick little overview of the fascia and the connective tissue in our body, which will really help you start to be able to visualize what's happening when we get a scar there. So the fascia, you can think of, it's our connective tissue, and it's like a big spider web that runs through our body, literally head to toe, and from the surface right under the skin all the way down deep into the very center of your body. And the fascia at the surface really looks like a cobweb, kind of. It's really stretchy, and it's got a lot of play to it. It's got a lot of movement. And then as you go deeper into the body, the fascia gets really thick and sturdy. And one of the things it does is it encases all of our organs. All of our organs each have specialized fascia around them that protects them. And it also helps anchor them in place and create some organization to the inside of our body. So because this fascia is like a cobweb, literally bits of fascia penetrate into every structure of the body, every organ, bone, muscles, joints. There's little bits of these cobwebs that attach to all of that stuff. So when you have a scar, like say you've had an abdominal surgery, maybe that you had your appendix out or your gallbladder out or even a C-section, anything in there, even if it was laparoscopic where they just went through and only made a small incision on the surface, those kind of things can leave behind scar tissue. So the body has to heal that afterwards. And what you want the body to do is start laying down scar tissue to bring it all back together. And you can think of the scar tissue kind of like a patch, So if we have our fascia that has all this great organization in there, and then we lay down scar tissue on top of it, the scar tissue isn't as stretchy and mobile as what was originally there. Because we need it to be really strong. So if you think of, we've got this napkin that's going to kind of represent some fascia. This is the fascia in my body. And if you were to look at your clothes, you would see that there's all the threads are nice and lined up. And that's really like how our fascia is in our body. And then if you were to slice through it somewhere and stitch it back up, you would see that the stitching, you'd be able to tell where that is, right?
Right.
And it's not going to be quite as strong as what was originally there.
Just like if you have like literally a shirt that rips and then you sew it up, it's going to have like some puckering and some, like, it's never going to be this sort of like beautiful seamless thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And this it's the same in our body.
Right.
And when you get a little point that's kind of gotten stuck and that puts some scar tissue there, you can see how it creates these wrinkles and these pulls all around it. And that's how it is in our fascia. And then what happens is this doesn't move as well because there's lots of collagen that keeps it really sturdy, but also makes it kind of stiff. That fascia then, we start to kind of fold around that point that doesn't move. We won't be able to stretch it. Right. And then this pull here can get more significant. And you can see it will pull to anywhere. And because that fascia is a big connected web, those lines of pull can affect all kinds of things. So you might have an abdominal surgery that's starting to pull up to your shoulder or down to your hip, or even create headaches because it's taking that whole fascial system and tightening up and twisting it up. And in the case of abdominal surgery, because we know that that fascia surrounds all of our organs, it starts to pull on those or bind those up. So there's points of tension where things are getting folded around and things are getting pulled on. So like I was saying with the intestines, you start to have like these little kinks in the hose where food can't move through really well.
Right. So you'd be thinking about this, of course, if you've had any abdominal surgery, and then definitely thinking about this if you've had just that surgery, and then you've noticed after the fact. Maybe we were just talking before we started filming about some women who've had like C-section surgery, and then, you know, they suddenly become constipated. They've never had that issue before, and suddenly that's a big issue for them, and they're doing all the healing work and nothing's working. Well, it could just be that fascia constricting thing.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting.
And this is a really good thing to look at if you've already done all the functional stuff.
Right.
If you're drinking enough water and you're following your like healing protocol and doing all the things you know should be supporting, but you're still having the symptoms, and you know you've had some old injuries or surgery or like chronic gut issues. Even if you had like a surgery or injury that affected you somewhere else, like we said, the fascia is this long web. So if you had a hip replacement or something up in the chest or the upper body, that can even create issues, you know, through the abdominal cavity and the digestive organs as well. So if you're doing all the right things and it's just not getting better, that's when you might want to look at what can I do to support the structure and free things up that way.
Totally. So what can we do?
Yeah. So if it's been a really, really, really big surgery and there's a lot of scar tissue in there, that's probably where you're going to need to have some additional help. But I'll give you a few things that you can get started with. Yeah. And this is really great too for people who have recently had a surgery or something like that, or are planning to. It's so much easier to do this preventatively in the first like few months or year after you've had a surgery than to wait, 10 years down the road.
Right. But if that is the case for somebody, and a lot of people I know that's, kind of, issues just aren't resolving. It's gotten to the point where it has been years. That's often the time when people are doing this work. Is it still helpful to do these exercises?
You can still totally do it. Okay. And so it's kind of like, I actually often I'll show you some techniques that are really similar to how if you had a really tight IT band or quad muscles and you got on the foam roller and you rolled it out, that's what we're going to be learning today is I'm going to teach you how to get that moving. So we've got this little piece of yarn here, and this yarn is going to represent the scar. So you can put it wherever you want. So you can kind of mimic.
So let's pretend, I don't know actually where a gallbladder, but let's pretend it was like right around here.
Had a surgery here. They had to slice in. Maybe they're accessing the liver or the gallbladder or part of the intestine. And so just a quick caveat, you want to start doing this once the scar has healed a bit. So you don't want to do it when it's still got a scab on it. In that case, when you start moving it around, it's likely to rip open, and then you're going to really just set yourself back. So wait until it's fully healed. That's going to take a few weeks at least, and take a look at it. Everybody has a different rate that their body is going to heal at, just depending on who they are and what the surgery and what the injury was. Totally. So make sure that it's fully, knitted back together, and then you're just going to start by checking out your scar. Right. So you'll look at it and you'll see, are there any points where it's kind of like really bumpy or like really thick? those are going to be places that you want to put extra attention on because that's where it's most restricted.
Okay.
And then you would go around and you would just start by doing like a gentle massage along there. So you can start by just doing some sweeps along the scar using flat hand, the finger pads, and just some soft pressure there. And this is just to get a sense of, okay, where does the scar move well? Where can I kind of slide my hand through and I feel the tissue underneath yielding to my pressure? And where do I feel bumps, grit?
Right.
It'll feel like kind of like, you'll feel like a little chunk of something that feels kind of hard.
Yeah.
And that's where there's just that extra buildup of scar tissue.
Right.
And that's where it's going to potentially be more problematic. So
Right.
first you're just going to go along and you'll just kind of feel that, notice anything. You can do some little circles clockwise, counterclockwise with light pressure. And you can do that with a little oil or lotion or something just to make it easier to slide.
Right.
Vitamin E is really amazing. If you have some lotion that has vitamin E oil in it, that can be just really helpful to promote scar healing even more.
Great.
And then
so I'm assuming this, you want to be doing this on bare skin, right?
Yeah, you're going to do
really
it right
do it
over
on the skin. Okay.
on the scar itself. That's the easiest way to feel
Totally.
it. And as you're going, you want to you're going to start with light pressure and then you're going to go firmer as you go. And you want to just listen to your body. It can be a little uncomfortable as we start to get in there. The first time you do it, just err on the side of caution, go more light rather than just digging in there deep, especially if the scar is fresh. If the scar is years old, you're not going to risk separating the scar, but if it's fresh,
go nice
tread lightly and then build up to more pressure.
Makes sense.
And then, so you can start by, if the scar is new, you can take 2 fingers and you can go on either side of the scar, just pressing along there, especially if it's too tender to press on the actual scar itself.
Right.
So you just do some long sweeping strokes on either side with the scar right in between your fingers there. And any places where you feel there's some restriction, you just spend a little more time there.
Right.
Another thing you can do is anchor the scar with one hand, so you're holding everything down and then drawing your fingers along to create a stretching. So you'll actually, you're trying to pull it apart here. So you can think of it like taffy or something like that, where you're trying to create some length. And that you're just going to start going deeper pressure as you can tolerate with each stroke. And you just are looking for, where does it feel like you're being productive? You want to feel a good stretch. It should not be excruciating.
Right.
So if you, at any point you feel like a sharp stabbing pain or anything that feels like a bad pain rather than just a productive stretch, just back off.
Yeah, totally.
So you can do sweeping strokes along. You can start doing more pressure in circles along there, just kind of getting in, massaging that in circles, clockwise, counterclockwise. And then you can do what we call cross friction massage, where you're going perpendicular to the scar. So you can just start by going up and down over one area for a while, then the next, trying to feel it start moving. And then you can even do a technique where you hold the tissue below and you stretch it up, or hold above and stretch it down. And if you have a lotion or an oil of something, you'll hold that there and you'll just pull down, crossing over the scar itself and then kind of sliding down below it. So this is helping to create an organization to the scar tissue. Right. Because like I said, the scar tissue, when it goes down, all the fibers are going all different directions. They're not well organized the way our original fascia was organized. And what we want to do, the scar will start to remodel and reform depending on how it is stressed. And when I say stress, like I mean the good kind of stress, the kind of stress you give yourself when you go to the gym and you want to change the form of your muscles by growing them bigger. You're applying a specific measured stress in order to get the changes that you want. We want to do the same thing here. So rather than having that scar tissue be kind of disorganized, we're actually creating organization. So we're lengthening the scar and we're going to lengthen it up above and below it as well with those vertical strokes perpendicular to the scar itself. So this is one, creating organization there, and it's also actually making the tissue stronger because we're applying that little stressor that's going to help build its strength. So those are the simple techniques you can do for yourself. And if you have deep scar tissue, like if you have something old in there, maybe somewhere centrally in your abdomen or down just above your hips or something, you can use a fair bit of pressure and just push in and just start to move it around. And here's where you can start to use your intuition. Where does it feel like I'm getting into something good that could use a little stretch? Avoiding anything that feels really sharp or painful, like really painful, but deep pressure that feels like a stretch or that good kind of pain where you're like, I feel like I'm moving something and I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on the spot.
Yeah.
You can start to kind of freestyle around with that and just explore where you know you have maybe some old scar tissue.
You know, something I'm thinking as you're doing, if we're talking about this, you know, when there's any kind of scarring, like there's so many layers to it. Of course, yes, there's the physical aspect of things where we're, you know, reworking that fascia and helping with the organization, etc. But there's also a piece of this, you know, like after we have had, whether it's an injury or surgery or whatever it is, like there's like just this action of like such deep self-care and connecting into that part of the body. I can't help but think that that's got to have as much benefit, maybe not as much, but some benefit to this, just the attention and the love that you're giving to yourself, as opposed to like, oh, I mean, I know when I had my C-section scar, there was a big part of me that just like didn't want to see it, right? Like it was very sort of a detached experience of it.
Yeah.
And I, you know, just sort of wanted it to not be there.
Yeah.
But I can see how, had I known about this technique, doing this and like just really kind of loving that part of yourself, sort of like, you know, we love the wounds, you know, in therapy or whatever it is, but like really recognizing that, I can see that that could have a lot of value and healing in and of itself, like let alone the rest of it.
I love that you made that point, and that's something I work with my clients a lot on, because one of my specialties is also bringing the mind and the body together.
Right.
And what we see a lot, and body workers will tell you this, from massage therapists to chiropractors, is that sometimes when you start working on scar tissue, a lot of emotion will come up with that, because where we hold those scars can be places where the nervous system is holding a lot of those emotions that are encoded in our body, which get encoded in a really specific way in our brain. And when you access them through the body, they can surface. And so often there are tears or memories that will come up as we start moving into that scar tissue. And then as you start to tend to your scar, you can change the relationship that you have with your scar. And with my clients, sometimes we'll just give some appreciation to the body for what it's been through and how resilient it is for being able to come back from that and heal and get strong again. So I love that you made that point. Yeah, and it helps develop our awareness too.
100%.
Increases our body awareness, because when they cut through the scars, when they cut through the tissue there that leaves the scar, they're also damaging some of the nerves as well. And so this helps nerves regrow, blood supply come back, fluids start moving through there and circulating again, and that will actually also help heighten the awareness that you have there again, which is amazing.
Well, I mean, we started this conversation about digestion, but clearly you could do this for any scar.
Absolutely.
It's going to just support the healing process.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This is so helpful. Now, if, you know, you talked about if there's like sort of, if the injury has been significant, or, you know, sort of a lot of different layers, what, you know, for those of you who are lucky enough to be here in Portland, Oregon, we'll make sure that we include a link to your website with this. But for people who aren't lucky enough to live here in Portland, Oregon, what kind of therapists, like what's the Google search for how to find their own personal Caitlin?
Yeah, I often recommend, if you have scar tissue or anything going on with your digestion that you think has a structural component, look for somebody who does manual therapy and specifically visceral mobilization. And there's a wide range of practitioners who can do that. Physical therapists, some massage therapists do, some chiropractors, osteopaths, naturopaths do this. So you can look for those type of practitioners and then find one who specializes in either manual therapy, or it can be a little harder to find, but visceral mobilization if you have somebody in your area who does that. So that's a great place to start. And then if it's just general scar tissue work, like maybe it isn't affecting your digestion so much, but you think it might be giving you some back pain or neck pain, headaches, hip issues, anything like that, pretty much any practitioner who does hands-on work is going to be able to help you with that. Yeah. So
wonderful.
Body work is such an amazing support, and
it really
works on so many levels. So I would encourage people to just look around and see if they can find a body worker in their area of any sort who they resonate with. And you'll know, I always tell people, like, check them out, look at their website, give them a call, and just listen to your gut. And if you get a sense that this person might be able to help you, and you go in and your body feels relaxed and good when you see them, that's a good person to keep on your team.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you so much. This is so helpful.
Thanks for having me.
If you have tried these techniques, definitely leave comments and share a little bit about your experience. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them in there. We'll make sure we get them to Caitlin. Is there, can we give an email address?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would encourage people to just go on my website, actually, feelingcentered.com.
Great.
And there's some articles about this stuff posted there. And that you can also contact me email and phone number are all up there. So feelingcentered.com is a great place to find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.